I'm Dan Mason. I'm one of the co-owners of AR Designs. We're the ISP for this broadband project at Oakwood Shores.
James Ratliff, CEO of AR Designs. We've been partnered with the community builders for a long time now to solve the digital divide, and we're looking to expand our range and partnership.
My name is Jessie Schnell, and I have been working for TCB. This is my second time back at TCB. The first iteration was 2005 through 2011. And I was, at that time, project associate working under senior project manager Lee Prater, who's now over at the Chicago Housing Authority. But she was the project manager for Oakwood Shores, and so those were the projects that I helped to develop, the first phases over at Oakwood. And then I was called back to work in 2015. This time I am now development operations manager. I basically follow wherever the critical path is for the entire office. So whatever projects that we need to execute and bring across the finish line, I might jump in during closings or capital contributions, bringing in developer fee, wherever I'm needed. Then I also take on special projects too. So one of the special projects that I was lucky enough to participate in is the Wi-Fi. So I just mentioned I was here before, and I worked with Lee Prater at Oakwood Shores. And during my time, we had put in Wi-Fi for the residents to use at Oakwood Shores. So in 2015, when I was called back and we had new staff, property management staff, and I asked them how the Wi-Fi was going for residents, and they said, "What Wi-Fi?" So I was very surprised at that point to hear that apparently when the security systems were installed, the security systems kind of sucked up all the broadband available, and so there was really nothing left for resident use. AR Design, who is our broadband provider for the Lifeline Program, well, they were going to upgrade the equipment, but at that point I said, no, we need to take a step backward and figure out how we're going to fix this broadband situation so that we are able to provide that Wi-Fi to the residents. That was what the intent was for. So the services that we have available in the building, AT&T, I believe RCN and Comcast are all in the building, and so they can use any one of those services through those providers, but they're at market price. You know, they're not going to be subsidized or discounted. And so there's a lot of residents that don't have Wi-Fi or access to Wi-Fi because they can't afford, the monthly expense. It was unfortunately cost prohibitive for operations to cover the cost of, adding additional fiber lines and all of these things that we were, they were pulling quotes for me, they were getting me information. So I sent them back to the drawing board at that point in time and said, hey, we need to find a subsidy that will cover the cost of the Wi-Fi for the residents. So we're going to go from a different angle. Luckily, Lee Prater over at the CHA, she was the project manager for Oakwood Shores, and she had been sort of stockpiling cash at the end of these projects for Wi-Fi. Luckily, so when I came back, I had just like these little pots of money that I was pulling together so I could cover the cost of equipment, but it didn't cover the cost of operations. During that time, there was an initiative that was started by the Obama administration. It was called Everyone On. And Everyone On was really about just that. We have these digital divides in different, low-income neighborhoods and communities where they didn't have access to internet. And Oakwood Shores was selected as a pilot for this Everyone On program, and how we could potentially use this Lifeline subsidy, which is regulated by the FCC, to cover, I guess, on a community basis rather than a single individual family or home, to an entire community, mixed income, such as Oakwood Shores, where we could implement broadband and provide a service to everybody. So, market rate residents, while they might be able to afford $100 a month for Wi-Fi, that's not the case for some of the lower income families, and shouldn't we all have access, to the internet at this, point in time, right? And it seemed like a really awesome opportunity. James and Dan from AR Design, they applied to the FCC to become it's considered a Lifeline service provider. And that was a very long process to get approved. And we were approved. Yes. Okay. But unfortunately, when Obama administration was no longer there, that program was kicked to the state. There were only 9 applicants at that point in time that had been approved nationwide. So we were one of them. So we ended up getting both approval from the state and through the FCC for AR Design to be the Lifeline service provider. What we had started with Oakwood Shores sort of evolved into incorporating Cornerstone and Shops and Lofts, which are other developments that TCP has over on the south side of Chicago, in this area that's known as this broadband desert. And so now to cover more equipment for more properties, right? And so it's just like, it just kind of just keeps evolving over time. James and Dan came upon this grant opportunity. This was through Connect Illinois. And so, at that time, we had come to a conclusion. The CHA wanted to participate in this as well because they have other properties within the same vicinity to include, all of the low-income housing residents in the CHA development, as well as now we've sort of rolled in all of the TCB properties here in Illinois. And if we can, hopefully we can make this happen, I think we will be the first of any developer that has kind of accomplished something like this. The first grant, because we had so many different properties, and we're talking about large properties, the one CHA property is, I think it's over 500 units, so it's big. And then Oakwood Shores is huge, so we've got a lot of property, and AT&T was tasked. So they are, AT&T is basically our service provider. It is AR Design that is providing the Lifeline piece to the low-income housing residents. And so the grant was an opportunity then for us to capture some of those costs, but we needed AT&T to provide us with their plans for, what is this equipment going to cost to install at all of these buildings. And if you can imagine, when we're talking about that many properties and, having gather all of the blueprints of the buildings and the electrical lines and all of these different pieces that are required for them to actually, come up with a quote for us, it took them, a year? They weren't able to get it to us before the grant application was due the first time. And so unfortunately, we weren't able to get the application in. We are now on our second opportunity, and we do have those numbers back from AT&T, and we are now working to collaborate with the CHA to go in as a partnership, so that we're providing something to the CHA households that all need access to Wi-Fi. We're getting there, and I'm pretty confident that we will succeed. And especially now we brought Rose in, and we've got CL staff helping with resident and making them informed and educating them on, the different options or opportunity that we might have available and enrolling in the program. And that's going to be, I think, the next biggest thing that we're going to have to work through is the enrollment piece.
James and I both worked at NASA, and we had involvement in software development for communications and antennas and wireless communications. So we talked with them because they were evaluating ways to bring broadband to their community. At the time, I think it was the first two phases, maybe the 200 families. They really wanted it to be available and affordable for everybody, and that resonated with us.
We've been working with the community builders since 2003, when there were roughly 200 families. I think they were around in phase 1 or 2 of development, and we served that via a mesh network, which was great for that time. And over time, construction phases passed and more residents came, and the model needed some tweaking, based on more people coming and having a sustainable model. Initially, we saw wireless as a good way to, reach folks without, having to, touch the unupgraded wiring, if you will, that made it more cost effective. Kind of where we are now, which is we're not using mesh, but we're using fiber. 100 by 100, which is very important, and it really falls into the criteria of the BEADS Act when you're talking about, urban underserved in particular. No bundling, you don't have to have a TV or phone to get a cheap internet price, and it's fixed essentially. It's not just a temporary 12-month situation where there's no data caps.
The 15 communities here that are represented, we would expand to, I want to say 3,500 to 4,000 families, and some of these are ongoing developments. And so I think we would have the infrastructure to serve 5,000 plus in a way that many neighborhoods just like this could also benefit. We have our partners who can source the equipment. The network has been designed. We're ready to deploy. We understand the bandwidth needs. So I think we've been really ready to go for quite a while. What we want is to be able to have the adequate capitalization in order to establish the network the way it needs to be for the future. 5net is the internet service branding. So when it is launched for this community, it'll be under that brand name. What we'd like to do is become a center for IT training. In addition to serving the community with great broadband service, we want to be able to have the community be trained and be able to serve themselves in IT and to develop a career path.
We're working with IBM. There's a platform, essentially, you can think of it as a community portal, if you will, that kind of brings everything together. If you're talking about education, telehealth, training, this portal is really that kind of one-stop shop to connect residents with experts and, kind of make things happen.